On March 3, 1991, exactly 1 year before my son Ben was born, Rodney King was beaten by 4 police officers after a traffic stop. It was videotaped. America had not seen such violence on their TV since the civil rights era. The first reaction was that the police were out of line. But over a year of debate and justification, by April 29, 1992, they were acquitted. My son was 2 months old. I cried and thought, my son is not safe in this world. I felt a weight that I never expected. My wife had grown up in a different context. She was not surprised by the verdict. She grew up on the south side of Chicago under the late Mayor Richard J. Daley, who famously said after the Democratic Convention and the riots, the police riot that followed that, the police don't cause disorder, they're here to preserve disorder. She grew up knowing that police brutality was real. Black Lives Matter was created in 2012 after Trayvon Martin's murderer, George Zimmerman, was acquitted for his crime. And a dead 17-year-old Trayvon was posthumously placed on trial for his own murder. Rooted in the experiences of black people in this country who actively resist dehumanization, Black Lives Matter is a call to action and a response to the virulent anti-black racism that permeates our society. That's a statement from their website. The founders, Alicia Garza, Patrice Cullors, and Opal Tometi, create on their website, that we have created a space for celebration and a humanization of black lives. And they, on their website, list lots of misconceptions about who people say they are. And I'm going to list a few of them, but I just recommend you go to their site, Black Lives Matter, and read the whole list. Number 1 is that the movement doesn't care about black-on-black crime. The idea that black-on-black crime is not a significant conversation among black people is patently false. In Chicago, long maligned for its high rates of interracial murder, members of the community created violence interrupters to disrupt violent altercations before they escalate. However, those who insist on talking about black-on-black crime frequently fail to acknowledge that most crime is intraracial. 93% of black murder victims are killed by other black people. 84% of white murder victims are killed by other white people. Basically, you have to know someone most of the time to be angry enough to kill them. And the fact that most crime is intra-racial only highlights the fact of how segregated we are still in our social interactions. Not that I'm advocating more interracial murder, but I just want less murder all around. Another misconception is that the movement hates white people. The statement Black Lives Matter is not an anti-white proposition. Contained within the statement is an unspoken but implied "to," as in Black Lives Matter too. However, those white people who continue to mischaracterize the affirmation of the value of black life as being anti-white are suggesting that in order for white lives to matter, black lives cannot. And I think perhaps most importantly, the misconception has been that the movement hates police officers. Police officers are people. Their lives have inherent value. This movement is not anti-people movement, and therefore it's not an anti-police officer movement. Most police officers are just everyday people who want to do their jobs and make a living for their families and come home safely at the end of their shifts. Thus, Black Lives Matter movement is not trying to make the world more unsafe for police, but it does hope to make police officers less of a threat to communities of color. That the idea that the movement has caused police to not be able to do their job is a suggestion that the only way to do their job is to use excessive force. And that the idea that cameras are somehow make them unable to do their job means that they need to change the way they do their job. And I want to emphasize that most police officers do their job, follow the book. That when you've been at a traffic stop and they are kind of stone-faced and they just keep on repeating things over and over without emotion, they don't joke with you, they don't do anything, that's because they're doing it by the book. They're trying to keep a calm voice and not get excited when you get excited. It's a hard job. Many UU churches have put up Black Lives Matter banners, starting with the church in Kirkland, Missouri, just outside of St. Louis. Our church is closest to Ferguson, and they started holding vigils for people as soon as the problems erupted. And they've been followed by many other UU churches. It is congruent with the UU principle of affirming and promoting the inherent worth and dignity of all people. We are planning on putting up a Black Lives Matter sign in our property on April 4th, on the anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. Some will ask why we can't say all lives matter. And while most agree to that statement in theory, it's clear that it has not been practiced. We lift up black lives precisely because many people need to be reminded that black lives matter. At other churches, the signs have gone up and they've been vandalized. They've been vandalized in St. Louis suburbs, Bethesda, Maryland, and Heartland, Wisconsin. But then they put up a new sign. The board decided that we should put up a sign, but they and I had some conditions. We did not want the sign to be empty symbolism. We wanted to make sure we had a program here at church and in the community that fostered dialogue. When we do this, we want to do it right. That's why we're doing some internal work for 2 months before we put up the sign. Beginning with today, next week at the forum, and a whole series of events that are both located here at the church and in the community. And you have a list of those events in your order of service. The main thing about this, that it's time to pay attention. It's time for us to pay attention. I could say more, but the main purpose of this sermon is to begin conversation. So I'd like to hear from all of you, your thoughts, misgivings, hopes, and fears about taking a stand like this. This is a safe area that we won't ridicule people's fears because it is a bold thing to do. But we want to heal each other's fears with love.